No mai haere mai. Ko toka toka te monga, te eru nei taku nako, ko waitamata te awa e mahia nei aku maharahara, no tamaki makoro ho. E mihi ana ki ngā toho o nehi o te whanganui a tara o noho neo. Ko Melanie Weber toku ingoa, and as my friend said, I am the president of PPTA Te Wehingaroa. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to Whakatairangatia, advancing the dream of public education. It's always a big call busting out the dream word in a speech, but it's fair to say that for a considerable time, we have had a dream. It's a bit more than a dream though. It's a fundamental and research-backed understanding that teachers need access to high quality, relevant PLD in order to be able to bring out the best in their students. Since the sweeping changes of the late 1980s broke up the networks of teacher-based PLD, we have been continually reinventing the wheel with very little resource at times. The tension of our highly devolved system is that while it gives schools the freedom to experiment with what works for them in their contexts, equally it makes it hard to share this best practice across the system. It feels like the pendulum may be swinging back again, and we're hopeful that the vision of the Schooling Futures to Stronger Together, or Day After Tomorrow's Schools report, will not end up too watered down as it rolls out, and curriculum centres and education service agencies won't be just more jargon and barriers in the system. If we were to misquote Beebe, we might say that part of our vision is that all teachers, rich or poor, whether they live in town or country, have a right to PLD of the kind for which they are best fitted and to the fullest extent of their powers. The PPTA PLD Fund is helping achieve this vision. This conference is part of it, but so too is the funding that will see many more teachers across the motu able to attend their subject association conferences. Mine is happening right now and I can't be there. The Term 3 break will have further opportunities for teachers, with the Māori Teachers Conference, as well as conferences supporting provisionally certified teachers. I could talk PLD an awfully long time. PPTA has been talking PLD for an awfully long time. While the work we do, which is most visible, is often the industrial, this conference shines a light on the first objective listed in our Constitution: to advance the cause of education generally and of all phases of secondary and technical education in particular. Here, we have an opportunity for educators to come together to talk about how we can advance that cause. It is a conference that we hope will become biennial, a place where teacher researchers can work towards our dream of a system in which it is impossible to fail. We have a remarkable mix of New Zealand and overseas keynote speakers. To pick a few, Rawiri Toia, who has spoken so firmly this morning, the Director of Māori-medium schooling projects for Victoria University of Wellington, is first up, providing his vision of an ākonga-centred curriculum. What could be more pertinent with the long overdue discussion about local curriculum design and mana ōrite o te mātauranga Māori? He suggests that while the default reference is English medium schooling, Māori-medium schooling will never reach its potential. But by looking to the past and the future for guidance and inspiration, we can move forward. Via Zoom, to prove he's more than just Finland, we have Pasi Solberg, Director of the Gonski Institute of New South Wales University. He is a fierce opponent of the global education reform movement, or GERM. Keeping the carpetbaggers out of education is a key goal of mine, so I suspect we will find much common ground. Singapore has a very structured professional development structure for teachers, delivered through the National Institute of Education. And we're fortunate to have Dr. Trevina Kang, who oversees the leadership programs for principals and middle leaders and the professional development programs for teachers. With the exception of the networks of expertise, teacher PLD in New Zealand over the last few years has been a disgrace. Is there something that we can learn from the Singapore experience? Back again to the local. Helen Varney is going to share her knowledge of how tapasa gives us a positive framework to grow teachers and leaders who in turn grow our Pacific learners. It's not just about the keynotes though. Teacher-led workshops will allow teachers to share their best practices in both English and Māori-medium settings. And there will be opportunities to hear the latest research findings from our teacher researchers and academics. It's probably best that I direct you to the app. Oh, there was a sign before. Because we have 26 workshop presentations and 17 research presentations to choose from. It's the conference equivalent of going to a really great restaurant where you want to try everything and know that you can't make a bad decision because it's all delicious. While you're on your phones, the tweeting types among you might want to take advantage of our hashtag PPTA Ed21. And finally, to the thank yous. To Victoria University of Wellington for supporting the conference, to the team from Conferences and Events whose administrative and logistical help at connecting all of the moving parts, originally for a conference planned last year and now the conference happening this year, has been invaluable. Did I mention that we have an app? And to the staff of PPTA who have guided us through. To Te Aotearoa who have given us such a warm welcome. And lastly to our minister, who is willing to engage with the difficult conversations even while protecting us from a global pandemic. And if I heard him right, recognise the value in us negotiating to provide teachers with more time to engage in professional learning. Good PLD feeds us. It sends us back to our classrooms invigorated and excited. I hope you all find something of what you are looking for here. Something that will help us make that dream of public education a reality. Mā te hoi ngā tahi, ka u o tātou waka ki te mata. Through collaboration, we reach our destination. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou, ko Cam Stewart tōku ingoa. I have the very important duty of giving you the health and safety instructions for today. A few things that have been provided to us from the what are they called? Intercontinental Hotel, and thanks to them for hosting us. Our guests here are protected by an advanced fire protection system, which can evacuate single floors or the entire building, much flashier than what we're used to. In the event of an emergency, you'll be warned by an electronic alarm. If this alarm is sounding on your floor, you must evacuate the hotel to the evacuation point across the road from the hotel in front of number 1 Grey Street. Whilst on the conference floor, proceed to the nearest emergency exit, use the main hotel stairs or the fire exits besides the Aurora and Featherston room. So that's all sort of out in this general direction over here. Do not use the elevators. If your conference room exit is blocked, please go back to your room and exit from the rear door, which will be over here. In the event of an earthquake or major incident, please remain calm and stay in the room. Take shelter under tables or chairs if necessary, and listen for an announcement over the hotel PA system for further instruction. The conference staff will let you know if you need to evacuate to the pre-function lobby. Please always follow instructions given by the staff. In an earthquake, please stay in your room and await announcements. Bathrooms are located to the right as you exit the ballroom. There are also bathrooms located to the left of the Chameleon restaurant on the ground level. Please take your personal belongings with you after each session, as you will not necessarily be coming back to the same venue. More toilets are located to the right of the lifts in the foyer, as well as on the ground floor next to reception. COVID-19 best practice measures. So in order to stay safe at alert level 1, there are a few simple steps we would like you to follow. Stay at home if you're sick. Keep track of where you have been. There are QR codes displayed in the foyer and the entrance to the hotel. Please scan these QR codes with the COVID Tracer app. Practice good hygiene, wash your hands often, cough and sneeze into your elbow, and avoid touching your face. Hand sanitation stations are positioned throughout the foyer and hotel for your convenience. Wi-Fi, there are Wi-Fi logins printed at the top of your tag up here. Mobile event app, as Mel mentioned, if you haven't already downloaded the conference app, we recommend you do so as to have all of the conference information at your fingertips. And if you need help, you can ask the registration desk. Q&A. So if you want to ask any questions during the keynote and or closing forum panel, you can do this using the mobile event app. Click on the live Q&A button. You can also upvote questions that have been submitted by other participants. A note for presenters, if you are a presenter, please ensure that your presentation is loaded in the venue that you are presenting in. If you uploaded your presentation in advance via the link you were provided, this has already been loaded into your presentation room. However, we still encourage you to check the presentation to ensure it is running correctly. Loading and checking can take place during the tea and lunch breaks. Please speak to the technician or registration desk if you have any queries. Conference catering, the most important thing of the day. As you will have seen during the morning tea, there are multiple buffet stations as well as separate dietary stations located to the left of the lifts. I liked that it was called the dietary buffet, by the way. All food items will be labelled, but if you have any queries, please speak to one of the staff or the registration desk for assistance. The social functions for this evening, so both the quiz taking place from today at 6 p.m. at St John's Bar and Eatery and the conference dinner at the Beehive tomorrow have limited space and RSVP is required to attend. Your name badge is your ticket. Please bring it to the functions. If you have a red quiz icon on your name badge, you are signed up to attend the quiz. Congratulations. I'm sorry, but my team's going to win. If you have a blue dinner plate, you are signed up to the conference dinner. If you are no longer always try. I try and win everything, Kevin. If you are no longer able to attend either of these functions, please let the registration desk know as soon as possible so that we can try and allocate your place to someone else that are on the waiting list already. If you're not signed up and would like to attend, please add your name to the waiting list at the registration desk. If you have any questions, the conference and events team will be available at the registration desk for the duration of the conference to answer any questions you may have. Ngai me koutou.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Jacinta Grice takuingoa, ko me makai whakahaere ki te wehingāroa o ko Waitaha Ahau, and it's my pleasure today to introduce Rawiri Toia. Melanie, I thought, did quite a good job at saying the projects that he's involved in and doing the lead-in. So I'm going to give up what I was going to say because she said that, and say what I found out on Google. So on Google, it says he's also a composer of music and writes songs. And we can tell he's a musician because he led Te Aroha. And the other thing is he's interested in softball as well. So, you know, just doing the personalising bits, the bits that make him like you and me. But what we're really going to hear now is the projects that he's involved in and the leadership he shows in New Zealand with the Māori-medium. So today,
Rawiri Toia, is speaking on an ākonga-centred curriculum. Welcome, Rawiri. I was also told to tell you about the questions on your app, but that's already been said by Cameron too, so. Will we wave to the photographers?
If you'd rather not be photographed, please tell them, and they will respect that.
Got to change glasses. Vision. Got special vision glasses. I've even got notes. I might try using those today at different times. Waira, te arangi atu nei waira te papai takotone. Ukuhia, ukutia, tēnei papa, hei wahanga kōrero, o ngauri, o te taitokera. O reira mihi mai karanga mai. Want to acknowledge the Minister and Associate Ministers, Taniti, Sio and Davis, as well as acknowledging Melanie, tēnā koe, and again reiterating this morning my acknowledgement and mihi to the organising committee and intervention committee, tēnā koutou. As I said this morning, it was we're in version 2, we're in iteration 2, and last year I had something written down, and over the last 12 months it's changed. Things have been put in, things have been thrown out. But essentially, the essence of it still stays the same around the idea of an ākonga-centred curriculum and an authentic indigenous curriculum. Some of that comes about because of the Minister Taniti and Davis's announcement in February around the refresh and curriculum refresh. So today is going to introduce some of those parts for the Māori-medium space. But I'm hoping that a lot of the kōrero is going to resonate with you around future-proofing and looking to change the trajectory of curriculum development in Aotearoa. Now, apparently my mate said if I pressed the button, things would work. Ka pai. I'm Rawiri Toia, and I hail from the north, although luckily enough for the past 25 or so years, I've been within the korowai manaake and aroha o Ngāti Mahanga within Waikato. This photo here, so my grandfather, great-grandfather, is the one with the hat. This is the photo when they were arrested. The last, at the dog tax wars in Waima. This was the last sort of confrontation of sorts between the British constabulary and Māori. I put this here as a reference of continual striving and continually challenging, and the idea that conflict doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, and that good things can come from that. My grandfather prophesied that he refused to pay taxes on his dogs, because he said, "Taihuaranga kōrero, wait, one day they will tax you and I, the people. They will tax the air that we breathe. Koina kahua mai. And such is the product today. So, at this time, with these people, we can look back and we can learn if we only listen. And it's similar with some of the things I'm going to touch on today in terms of curriculum development and how we can look forward by sometimes looking back. Some say that education offers a passport to success in modern life. They say it improves opportunities, lives, and lives of people around them. That it provides skills, knowledge, and tools for a successful working career. I'd just like to say, I wish I had a lapel mic. I'm one of those wanderers. Some of the photos on here will talk about how that's how I wander. So yes, I'm part of softball within Aotearoa, within New Zealand, and within Waikato. I'm also involved and have been involved with kapaaka since year dot. Sport and culture. It's probably one of the things that helped get me through secondary school. Probably similar to many other journeys of people sitting here. I wasn't necessarily brilliant at school. I can say that now, because when I was at school, I just said I was brilliant, like many of you. And this idea that I went to class, mostly, and the idea that I wanted to get through one class, to be able to go to another class, to be able to go to survive. Unlike a lot of my whanaunga and my peers of my time at schooling, who didn't get through to 7th form, who didn't have a successful time at secondary school, apparently I was one of the lucky ones. How terrible is that? So I sit here or stand here, and my darling wife, hopefully I've got her up there, otherwise I'll be in trouble. And we've got 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. My last child is in year 13. Yeah. And kind of wanting not to be there. Yeah. And we've got 2 mokos. So now we don't really worry about the kids. So, koina te ao te krani. The grandparents' idea that, oh yeah, no, choice. We'll take the mokos, we'll go and spoil them, do all of that thing, and then, you hear that, so we'll hand them back at the end of the day. When I heard all of my other people who I work with, they talk about that, I said, oh, no, I don't think I'd do that. Yes, I do that. So this is the fabric of things that have helped get me to where I am today. They probably keep me sane. So reinforcing the idea of well-being this morning, I, like you, have committed my life to education. From tutoring when I was still at school, to finishing school, teacher training. From there, jumping and going into something which I loved, which was ngā toi, and moving to Wellington, to Akupai. To then continuing through into Vic and being here now. It's people ask me, oh, how long have you been doing? And I say, gee, it feels like forever. And long may it continue, because I love it. I love the idea that at any one time we can make a difference. We can hopefully say something and grasp something which is poignant and relevant and resonates with whoever's listening. You do that every day with our rangatahi who sit in front of you. I see this as being no different, except hopefully you'll ask nice questions at the end. So this idea of myself and my journey, some say I've lived a sheltered life, and quite often some, and quite rightly so probably, say I'm still yet to live my true life. Like a lot of you, each day poses its challenge educationally, because we think about how can we make things better. It's constant. Melanie talked about this. My notes and the slides are really for your sanity, not mine. It's trying to keep me ring-fenced a little bit. What we've noticed, my colleagues and I, and acknowledge Dr. Tabitha McKenzie here, along with Hini Haya Murphy, along with Awhina Gray, along with Tony Trinick, we've been working for, it seems like, well, I wrote down here for a few years, but it's probably been a lot longer than that, around this idea that in the development and construction of Māori-medium curriculum, the default place for starting any of that has been with English medium. We followed the same plan, we followed the same mechanism, we followed the same policies. And what we're saying now is we will never reach the true potential of Māori students in Māori medium, ngā rangatira e noho nei, if we don't change the trajectory, if we don't decouple some things. Because some of this isn't working. Same system that I wanted to get through the day to get out is similar to a number of our students that we have now. And for a lot of those students and then the teachers, it just makes the job a whole lot more tiring. Just going to do a quick trip through time. Some of you will remember those pictures up there. I was hunting through and I was thinking, oh, no. I think I put a Nintendo up there. Who remembers playing Nintendo when they were young? Who were one of those sort of geeks? Yeah. I was too poor to have one of those, so I thought I'd put a photo up. It's the idea that in the 90s, the current iterations of curriculum development began for Māori medium. And again, they followed what was already happening for English medium. So the first Marautanga that were off the rank were Pāngaro, Te Ngākoe Trist, and Te Reo Māori, and there was another one in there I wrote down, Puitaiao. And they ended up being essentially translations and copies of them, with the idea that we needed to have something within these Māori medium classrooms that were there to support them. Of course, the challenge with that, by just translating it, you're not doing anything. It doesn't change the lens from which you're looking at this knowledge. It doesn't change the idea that you're responding to iwi, kōrero, knowledge, and the environment. But that was the first iteration of it. Closely followed within the mid-2000s of Te Marautanga Aotearoa. And as you can see, that we're in the iPhones, we've stepped up. And although there were some things that were loosened and changed, we essentially followed the same thing that was happening for the development of the NZC. So, of course, there are a lot of things that hanga tuki nei. Right? They're conflicted. But Te Marautanga Aotearoa was held up as one of the first, if not the first, indigenous Marautanga or curriculum documents across the world. It was the first time we went into a space where at least we weren't translating word for word what was happening in the English equivalent. But we were still bound by things like the 8 levels. We were still bound by the wahanga ako, learning areas. So there were things that we still had to do. But there were also aspects that we could include and we could change. And so we started to bring the notion that te reo Māori was a non-negotiable within Māori-medium schooling. We brought in the idea that instead of looking at key competencies and isolating them or doing that way, we looked at it from a different space and a different lens and a different perspective on how these particular things happened and came about within our teaching and learning. Within our deliberations, a lot of kōrero came about that actually a lot of the teachers who are sitting in front of our kids now have only used either NZC or Te Marautanga Aotearoa. It was a bit of a wake-up call not for me because I'm young, but my older colleagues, they were going, wow, now that's really different. It's a change. If these are the only curriculum documents that have led teaching, learning, planning, etc., we've still got a long way to go and a lot to do. And as Minister said earlier around well-being, I should refrain from saying blah, blah, blah. But the notion of focusing on ākonga and then not doing anything about it is painful. Yeah. I better return to my notes. One of the big challenges within the development of Te Marautanga Aotearoa actually was around the linguistic and the cognitive weight or pressure that we put on both kaiako and for ākonga. We didn't have the language, so that had to be created and developed over time. And so kaiako had to try to keep up with that. And so learning and the stress of that went through the roof. Taumahalo atu tēnā tu āhuatanga. Because the language within that and having to, within specific areas like Pāngare, like Pūtaiao, was extremely hard, not only for the kaiako but for our rangatahi. And so we acknowledge that it was what it was at that time. We've improved and increased. The language development of these young people sitting in front of us is outstanding and should be applauded, as well as the kaiako who have sacrificed to get them to that space. Tēnā koutou. The idea, when is change not a change? As I said before, the current framework results not in the child and their development being at the centre, but rather subject knowledge being at the forefront of planning. Crudely put, actually no, add to this the challenge of timetable, made a note around here. Timetable, administration, all of those things that you go through all the time. Crudely put, kaiako are forced to teach subjects and levels rather than learners and learning. It's important to recognise that and to not look over that as we move into the new space. And I'm hoping the opportunity from what was released in February from the ministers around the refresh of both curriculum. those two documents, the New Zealand curriculum, Te Marautanga, Aotearoa, which lift up and really are our national curriculum. The time is upon us to change trajectory and to think about things differently. Marautanga o Aotearoa served its time. It gave us a good lead-in. It valued te reo Māori. It put it at the front. But it also was still he herenga anō. It was still captured within the development of what was an English medium-led curriculum. A new trajectory. I was just thinking, I was with someone, this morning I spoke about Peter Gibson. Many of you won't know him, but for those who are from the Tairāwhiti in the Gisborne area, you'll know him. He was a stalwart of education within that space. He passed away. I was at his tangi last night. It was my diversion. I needed to go there and pay respects before coming here this morning. His funeral's today. He Pākehā ia. One of the phrases, he was born a Pākehā. He travelled his life within the Tairāwhiti. He became part of the fabric which is East Coast tanga. And yesterday, he had rangatira and tohunga farewell him on the front of the marae, on the front of the wharenui at Whangara. Beautiful. Another one of their kai kōrero got up and he said, "Oh, he was part of the hawhe pai. He's the good half of those Pākehā." That's all right, all of them, are all good here. We're all good here. We're all good here. I know this. Why do I know this? Because you sang a waiata. Even though I didn't know they were going to put the words up. Well done. So we reflect on those people who were bastions, whether they were Māori or non-Māori. They came and forced us to think differently about how we engage in the next lot of curriculum development. And so we go into this idea of trust, coherence and equity. Something that the Ministry of Education got a lot of work to do. Not only within Māori communities, but right across the country. We heard that today. It's important that the ministry do change and they catch up to things. And so I'm working in one of those spaces at the moment to help support that, along with a number of others who are here today. But it's important that he māma te kupu kai te ngutu o te tangata. It's very easy to pay lip service to these things. Eh? We'll see what it looks like over the next 3 to 5 years. It's important, I go back to my kraua, right? With that botha bowler hat, conflict. Keep challenging things. Keep asking the questions. It requires the new development to redefine the significant learning and to align valued outcomes, affording ākonga the opportunity to engage in learning that positions them positively for their future world. A world we don't know what's going to be happening. A world where we can know about certain knowledge at the click and asking Google or Siri. It's just so different. Our curriculum needs to be more open to that sort of thinking. Is it Trollific Cascade? We've got a scientist around here? Is that right? Yeah, that's right. The idea of disrupting thinking. the idea of changing some things. It's important that we celebrate those kura, those schools who are already well down this track of embracing an ākonga-centred curriculum. Those kura and whare kura who are already enacting an authentic indigenous curriculum. It's important, and we keep reminding the ministry and the people who we're working with, stay out of the way of those kura. Learn from them. Yeah? Look back, which is what they've done. They've looked back to their knowledge and have brought about huge changes in the Māori-medium space. Probably something that we can learn within the English medium space. There's a number of things I've been talking to our colleagues within the ministry about that. Sometimes you complicate things. You complicate things so much because you've got so much resource at your hands. So much so that by the time you delve down into the fine grain of learning, you've taken your eye off the things that we can't leave to chance. And that's what we're going to look at. Okay. I've lost my notes, so I'll carry on. Well, yeah. These two questions aren't unique to any Māori medium or any school in particular. For a lot of us, within education, we kind of think, well, these are questions which they kind of make sense. However, they don't transfer into the curriculum documents that have been currently created, yeah, and developed. And hara te mea takahi nei I te hunga tuhine. I'm not saying that the individuals who were part of that writing did something wrong. I was part of that. What I'm saying is that was iteration 2, and now we're looking forward. New opportunities. What do whānau want for their tamariki? It means more than just asking them. Check time. Good. It means more than just asking them. It means more than consultation in terms of, we've done these things, here they are, can you help us put them into practice? Because sometimes that's what's happening. We must change that. Yeah, that. Again, whether you're an English medium or Māori medium, tēnā te hua. In disrupting the current way of thinking about ākonga, and I want to bring in the word ākonga now. I will try not to use the word student within the space because I want us thinking about ākonga from an indigenous Aotearoa perspective, and it means something different than a student-led or a student-focused curriculum, student data-centred curriculum. I want us to start thinking about what it means for these kids who are coming through our schools and here in Aotearoa. What are the things that are important? What can't we leave to chance on the way? That's going to make he Akoranga Raukura. That's going to make this idea of our practice, pedagogy, curriculum development for students who are here, for ākonga, who are here in Aotearoa. Now, yes, I'm talking about from Māori-medium perspective. I'll need you to help me with what happens within your English medium schools. I bet you there are some things that are very similar. And I'll bet you there are things that you've spoken about before that haven't been taken notice of. Pini Hinare, his great-grandfather, he said, I'll do it in English. we've done too much to stop now. We've come too far not to continue to go further. That's kind of like how I see curriculum development. It's the long game. Mihia te kia liria kau. Took out her first comp after 101 weeks missing. I digress, but it's that long game. It's a bit like the Chiefs' long game. Come on, Chiefs. Te Marautanga Raukura was announced by the ministers in February about being the foundation framework for our upcoming development, or now the current development for Māori-medium. And I want to introduce this to you, and we're going to talk briefly about it, and that's going to be my, I'm on time. These are things that underpin He Akoranga Raukura. In 2021 and 22, there's going to be a lot of information coming out from ministry, central ministry, and from regions. And hopefully you'll see this and look at it and reference it to Māori-medium and to this presentation here. It's the first time we've talked about it, really. When it comes out, if you're in Māori-medium, help us, embrace it, make it what it needs to be. If you're an English medium, ask the questions, why aren't we referencing some of these things? Hopefully you read that. If not, my colleague at the back, Tabitha, she can answer all of those questions for you. She doesn't know it yet, but you can go for it. This is what we're progressing, eh? And again, these aren't new, but what we're trying to do at the moment is embed these in a different way. Again, for Māori-medium, it is about uncoupling NZC TMOA. Because really we've been doing parallel paths, eh? Right? Now's the time to separate those. Huge implications. Huge implications. But worth doing if we're wanting to realise the potential of our students, of our ākonga. Hey, we know this, he maramana. It's pretty clear to us. I wanted to put this thing in great people who are socially and culturally confident, who know, understand, and can apply their learning. Let's not put so much weight on these and these documents and hold them up e noho tapu ana, that they become so sacred that we feel we can't amend them, change them, make them suit what we need to within our context. They're a document that should be used, not honoured. Don't give it that sort of weight. He mea whakamahia tata. It's something we should just use. It's something that should be responding to our need, your need, their need. Not full of ambiguity and rhetoric. Me mutu tērā mahi. As you can see, I'm into the stuff, hey? I'm into the stuff. Okay. He Akoranga Raukura. I'm not translating He Akoranga Raukura because really you don't need it translated. It's the things that sit in behind it. So this thing around connection. It's the idea that our current system and our current suite looks to empower the individual. It looks to say, you can be great. It looks to say that you can achieve anything. But it forgets that the you they're talking about is connected to other people, to whānau. There is a reciprocal responsibility for our ākonga to know that, yes, you can achieve that, but you also need to get in the back and pick up a tea towel. You can achieve that, but you also need to sit and learn things along the way, and then the responsibility of the haukainga, the people at home, to ensure that they're there and upskilled enough to be able to help with that. That's the beginning of understanding Akoranga Raukura. It's the beginning of understanding connectedness and understanding that our ākonga who come in front of us every day are the same nieces, nephews, mokopuna, people in our community, the ones who we tell off, the ones who we give a hug, the ones who definitely are going to be our future. But the ones who are in need, especially now, we know this, in constant support. Yeah. Te Maiti hei Raukura have 4 pou, right? There are 4 pou, or posts, that really capture the essence of what we're doing. Again, it's trying to get away with all the rhetoric, get away with all that stuff, and bring down some 4 key things. He uri whakaheke te tamaiti. They are descendants. Students have whakapapa. We are all mokopuna of someone. They already carry with them legacy and some weight within that, of their own whakapapa. Don't need our schools putting something else on top of that. But they need schools to recognise that and work with them. The idea of valuing significant learning that's been handed down to them. You heard part of the waiata that they had this morning. Within that waiata, captured so much language, so much history. It's really impossible. I think it's impossible for you to really grasp the idea of what they were talking about this morning in terms of gathering everyone from the 4 winds all over the country to bring it in today and honouring who they are and honouring their whakapapa and reciting their whakapapa and all of the rangatira from around all of the areas. In 3 minutes. Too much, right, you fellas? He tangata te tamaiti. The sense of empowerment is further enabled where they can capture or look back on their capital. In the case of our ākonga hea rangatai, Māori capital. Their history counts so that they can enable them to stand as people. Kia tū tangata. Again, it's quite freaky because none of this just relates to Māori-medium stuff, eh? Yeah. Good. Whai mai. He tangata te tamaiti. Personal attributes. Dispositions is one thing we've been really talking about. You know? Talking about, but not finding an avenue to enact some of that. Talking about how we need to support and well-being, but not really taking that full on and asking the questions about perseverance and grit. And supporting our ākonga nā rangatahi kia tū tangata rātou to be able to stand strong within the world that they're about to approach. To be able to relate to others rather than texting others. All very important, but not necessarily new. But this is going to inform and frame the next iteration for Māori-medium education. He puna kōrero te tamaiti, so that the tamaiti is able to be a communicator. They're able to interact with people, with the environment, with technology at will. Again, not new, but the way it's enacted combines everything else. And it doesn't say that, okay, we want you to be a puna kōrero or a vessel and someone who can just fill things up. We want you to be able to interact. And we want you to be able to count on your history and your whakapapa to help lead and frame some of those discussions that you're going to have with your peers and everyone else. We want you to be connected. It'd be silly to think that whānau, Māori whānau, don't think literacy and numeracy is important. Because they do. I mean, we all do. But we've been sacrificing a whole lot of other things for the race down that journey. As Minister Hipkins said this morning, very eloquent, must have read my notes. I'm glad someone did. You know, in the 90s, the curriculum development at that stage was based on the idea that we wanted to create and develop more mathematicians and scientists. That was what the first iteration of curriculum was based on. Still got a bit of way to go, eh? The way we look at things, for the time, at that time, I'm sure we don't go into this to think, oh, we're just going to set it up and sabotage it. But it's important that we learn. And for our leaders within the ministry and the curriculum development, it's important for them to listen and take notice of that too. So please, when you see something come out around this idea of refresh, we had a meeting last week and Māori-medium, hate the word refresh, hate it. Everyone talks about refresh, we're going to throw it out, we're going to start again. And we're just going to say, is this part of your refresh? Yes. It's important that we all get on board and we part of that conversation and development. And that if you have influence within these spaces, to make sure that your voice is heard through that. That'll do for that. Time. Okay. Someone said leave space for questions. Yeah, okay. He ākonga te tamaiti. It's probably one of the ones that we do focus on. Hey, our ākonga are learners. Just need to think about the pedagogy that we're using within that space. Need to think about what's happening within the space to make it better, to make it more responsive to what's happening. Remember, it's about preparing them for things that are happening we don't even know about. We probably would freak out if we thought, what's going to happen 2080? Our kids are entering to school now. They're retiring when they're in 2080. 2080. I'll put it out there. Learning just about subjects may not be the way to go. Sorry, may not be the only way to go. There's some value in that, and at different times it's important to go into those. But we must think wider around some of those things. Who are the mathematicians in here? Good. Oh, sorry. Oh, kia ora. I was going to say, yeah. Scientists? Tēnā koutou. You'll all agree. Well, you may not. That there are parts within our specialist subjects that we really need to make sure that they get. There is some learning within our subjects that we can't leave to chance. What we're seeing is a student, an ākonga, in end of primary, if they don't get really a good grasp of particular things, by the time they get up to our current NCA level 1, level 2, level 3, the barrier's already there. They can't push through because they haven't mastered these things here. I'll go back to my first slide and how I said I survived school. Our ākonga these days, they're experts at surviving. And by the time we realise that they missed these big ideas or this key concepts here, I'm never going to say it's too late. I'm never going to say that. But we need to think about that down this other end too. Kapoi. That's enough about that. So those are the 4 pou of he te Māori Raukura. And everything we do whakapapas to that. It's a way to look at things in a different way. Unclog things. My notes say here, go back to your first writing. Changing minds, habits, ways of doing and thinking can be challenging. It is now time to take another step forward and evolve further the national curriculum in order for schooling, all schooling, to reach its full potential. It may also be a poignant time for education decision makers to look, listen, and learn from initiatives to better serve the large percentage of students in English medium as well. Some of those students who we're not reaching at the moment. Time. That'll do, eh? Nō reira ka tikone. Yeah, that'll do for me. I want to acknowledge, along with everyone else, the work that's been done to get us to where we are now within this hui. I've read through the presenters through the week. There's some engaging kōrero there. So I look forward to joining you as part of wandering around and being part of those workshops. But for me, I'd just like to say thank you. Tēnā koutou, for being an engaged audience. Hopefully you found something that kind of resonates at different levels for you. If you haven't, that's Trist's fault. Nō reira tēnā koutou, kāti tēnā tata katoa. Thank you. Oh, you haven't got any questions?
Yes, they're on the app.
Oh no, they're on the app. I downloaded I went into a room when I first got here to download the app. I was like, oh man, there's a whole lot of things on here. Okay.
So, the first question is Joe Brunsfield. Would you like to ask your own question, Joe?
Sure, yeah. Can I just read it off the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, kia ora.
How can what's over for the decolonization of Mātauranga and the education system in general?
What was that first line? How can... Oh, good. As I said, we're right at the beginning of things. And so there will be different level of comms coming out from Ministry of Education. They're going to come out and they're going to sit within schools. There are going to be some focus groups that are happening and run. Of course, you can do the app thing and send it in once that goes live. But I think the best way that you can tautoko and support this kaupapa and the kaupapa of the refresh or redevelopment of both Marautanga NZC and TMOA is as groups and clusters and in numbers to make your voice known and to talk about things that are important to you in your context. To ensure that if it's specific around localised, local-based curriculum, that you're saying that and that you're talking about specific things to you. For example, in Waikato, if Māori schools aren't doing the kingitanga, probably get chased out of town. And rightly so. But there are other initiatives that are happening that all schools can relate to within their space. Some of it, there are a lot of things happening now around New Zealand histories, / decouple, and then talk about takanga o te wā, which are re-energising some kōrero that's happening. But also still looking at areas that are critical around what's happening for the well-being and for the knowledge base of our ākonga within particular, talk about trades this morning, I don't want to talk about trades as such, but within different levels of responsibility post-school and opportunities. That's where I think this can make a difference. But more connectivity even within ourselves, within the curriculum development. Not happening at the moment. Kia ora.
Kia ora. The next one is Nathan Bergen. Nathan, would you like to ask your question?
Kia ora.
So that mātauranga or Aotearoa separates from the NZC, so they've been going parallel so far.
Yeah.
And so even if you're an English medium or Māori-medium, presumably you end up with the same sort of outcome, and like in NCEA and that sort of thing. If they were to be decoupled, how does that affect our rangatahi's work opportunities after Kura? Are they, we still live in the same world?
Yeah.
Or competing for jobs and things like that?
Yeah. This will sound a lot better in Māori, but I'll try to get it in English. Ko tahi te atua. Engari, he nui ngā momo, he nui ngā ara ka tahi ki te atua. They say that there's only one God, but there are many pathways to get there. And so what we're doing, and we're talking about within Te Marautanga Aotearoa, and that's pushed through into NCA development in terms of the RAS or the review that I'm part of at the moment as well. What we want to see is, at a higher level, a different view of credentialing into tertiary and then into the wider space. We can still cover and get to the same sort of knowledge outcome expectation thing over here by doing things in a different way, by doing it so that it connects and it's relevant to our ākonga with a different lens, so that they don't have to leave their Māoritanga at the school gate and then come and be something else, and then they get caught in a trap. It becomes so weighty on them, quite often they give up. They leave school. If there's another way to engage them through their own, heuri whakaheke, legacy and whakapapa and knowledge of your own history is powerful. Identity, it's powerful. So kaiako using those as the vehicle to help engage and make teaching of the now and the future relevant, that's gold, man. That's gold. That's what's going to happen. Does NCA and that stuff have to change? Yeah. Yeah. Universities have to change? Yeah. Got kids coming into university now fluent in Māori. They stick them back into language 101. Sorry. Yeah. It's terrible.
So Grant Colley or Paul Stevens, would you like to ask your question?
Sure. Kia ora wā.
Rawiri.
Rawiri.
Kia ora.
I suspect you may have made a slightly controversial point.
I hope more than one.
So when you said that kaiako are forced to teach subjects and levels rather than learners and learning, certainly you're making an important point. But I wonder if that can sometimes dichotomy between the two, when from my experience it's very important for us to make sure that students can find themselves in the curriculum. I think you talked about that a bit later in terms of the really important things
Yeah.
students need to know.
Yeah.
I just wonder if you'd reinforce that point and talk a bit about how you see that relationship and where the correction needs to be.
One of the things we're looking at the moment is within this project is te rewa. Te rewa are scaffolds. They are erected, put up and taken down for particular purposes. And I'm presenting on this tomorrow, come to workshop. And this is what we're basing a lot of the work around the common progression learning. So that big, most important things we can't leave to chance, they can become identified within the kura, within their local-based curriculum, to be able to ensure that if it's important to whānau, important to school, important to kaiako within that space, they don't have to be sacrificed or lost. Yeah? They don't have to be sacrificed and lost. What they do need to be, they need to be made sense of within the wider teaching program, rather than in a silo effect that quite often we're struggling to see how it all works together. Not in all cases. As I said, there are some kura within Māori-medium and wharekura. They're doing it now. You know, stay out of the way ministry. No doubt there'll be some within English medium who are doing the same. They need to be the beacons for what's happening along that space. There it goes. But I don't think it's happening as widely as we want it to, and as widely as it should. Yeah.
Cameron, would you like to ask yours?
Kia ora.
It's quite confronting actually, so your question being actively downvoted. I wonder maybe a better way to ask, following on from Paul's question, what impact do you think the review of the NCEA, and in particular its subject siloing, might have on our
Akonga, yeah. Heard horse before cart? Yes. Yeah. We do RAS. Sorry, all my whānau from ministry who are all part of this RAS thing. We do RAS, and then we do a refresh. Nā wai he ka taika hera wats. I think the overall impact, the challenge is going to be for how kaiako engage with those. We already know that. And the reduction of paerewa and the influence of he manaori, te mātauranga Māori, all of those things. If there's no support around that, and we talked about professional development and learning and development, if that's not there, nothing's going to change. But it does need to change. It needs to be seen through a different lens. We've within Māori-medium, Te Marautanga, Aotearoa, small group, and we cover all of the wahanga ako and do all of that. All of my mates go, yeah, throw those wahanga ako out. We don't want to do wahanga ako anymore. We want to focus on things in a different way, and we want to use te tamaiti hei raukura as a framework for developing some paerewa. Of course, that's going to get pushback from universities for that pathway, but it's worth taking that risk and having a fight. I'll get back to my first one, my karaua. Let's go for a fight.
Kia ora. Grant Holly.
Check that you've written it right. Is it a good question?
So, in looking at the classic Year 9 social studies class, and the question is really around if these kids are not in a specifically Māori-medium classroom, does differentiated learning from the kids that probably come up from an immersion kura and joined into the class that's more general,
Yeah.
also here in Scotland, teaching them?
Yeah.
Or are the real benefits that are seen from the research for the kids more based around them being outcomes really achievable within the Māori-medium classroom. Does that make sense?
Tātou pai. I think there needs to be a lot of work throughout this whole process within the refresh and also within the preparation within RAS, because when they hit that, that's another problem, isn't it? There has to be real, probably goes back to my previous one, there has to be a whole lot more support about, we're seeing a lot more of our ākonga, rangatahi, cross over backwards and forwards, not just at year 9. We're seeing them, for whatever reason, transition between them. It's one of the things we are looking at in a closer space now, to ask ourselves what's going to be needed if, the question over here, if we're taking uncoupling and our trajectory is going over here, that's going to heighten some pressure. And so we really have to have a long think about that to make sure we get it right, to support our ākonga within that space. I know it doesn't necessarily answer your question, but the thinking is right at the moment. That's where we are. We're asking ourselves those same questions about what is it that's going to need to be done. Not only transitioning from Māori-medium into, say, year 9 class, but also for ākonga transitioning and then into a bilingual class or a rumaki class, which is based within an English medium setting. Again, I haven't got an answer for that, but that's part of our sort of questioning and working on right now over the next 2 years.
Kia ora, that's the last question.
Kia
So
ora.
it's now my job to say thank you very much. The thing that actually stands out for me is what you said, to go back to the first page, and you reiterated at the end, which is changing minds, habits, ways of thinking can be challenging, but we want to work in partnership and move forward with this. So thank you for challenging us, and it's been a good conversation, and it's looking at a good way forward. And it's good too that you say, well, we don't have all the answers, but we've got to keep working together in partnership, and that we actually have to do this together, because that's the only way forward.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Kia ora.
At your feet down here, we've got a wee thank you gift.
Oh, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou.
Yeah. So, kia ora.
Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou.
Tēnā rā tātou katoa, kei te rangatira e Rawiri, e tamaiti hei Raukura, anei te whare, kōrero kingi tu heitia, te tupuna kingi tāwhia. Māku anō hanga tōku nei whare ko ngā pau o roto. e tonge kura nā kingi tāwheo. Ngā pau o roto kei te rangatira Rawiri, e uri whakaheke te tamaiti, e tamaiti, tangata te tamaiti, e puna kōrero te tamaiti, e ākonga te tamaiti. Nei rātō rahi, e mihi kauana, e tautoko kauana, kei te rangatira e Rawiri, tēnei ka mihi, tēnei ka mihi, tēnei ka mihi. Ka mutu kauake, koe hoki te kōrero, whakatairanga chia, education. Ko tae mai tātou katoa, tēnei ka mihi, advancing the dream of public education. Just like to share the love, once a PPTA, always a PPTA. Can we get some energy, please? When I pose the question, can you endorse it with always a PPTA? Nera, tēnā koutou. Once a PPTA? Always a PPTA. Oh, you are amazing. Tēnā koe Rawiri, from one Rawiri to another Rawiri. When I say yes, yes, can have some interaction, can we also endorse it with yes, yes? Are we celebrating yes, yes? Yes, yes. I can't feel the love in the middle over here. Are we endorsing and the celebration, whakamanoa, and honouring the kaupapa in regards to whakatairanga tia, advancing the dream of public education? Yes, yes? Yes, yes. Can we salute and acknowledge a wonderful, eloquent speaker, none other than, in time to come, Dr. Rawiri Toia? Yes, yes? Yes, yes. Tēnā koe e mara. Tēnā koe he mara. Ka mutu, we're about to have lunch, and we shall return back for another eloquent speaker, Helen, I believe is her name. Apologies if I'm pronouncing it incorrect. Talking about the wonderfulness in relationship to meeting the needs of Pacifica learners. So you've got three options, 13:20 or 1:20, please return back. Ne? Yes, yes. He nare, pai ana koe whakapai ngā kai. Thank you very much.